You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 89. As always, we're coming at you with the college football content. So we've got the Double A on deck this evening. Y'all could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with us on the show for a Saturday night edition as we're going to be recapping those college football semifinal games for you and discussing Carson Beck, weirdly enough, transferring to the Miami Hurricanes. What in the hell is the University of Miami thinking? Of course, before we get started, y'all, please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell. You know about the QR code at the NFL with AJL. On all social media platforms, we're 8 subscribers away from hitting 1,000. So if you guys don't do anything, even if you don't stay to the end of this show, subscribe and you can leave right now. That's all we ask of you. Get the subscribers up on the channel. Again, share the stream wherever you may be watching. Before we jump into the show tonight, I want to send the condolences out to everybody that's being affected by those wildfires over in California. An absolutely tragic scene.
And our family.
And if you're in the, yeah, big time. And if you're in the Southeast as well, of course, you might be experiencing a little bit of snow. So hope you're staying warm in that aspect, or at least trying to stay safe and evacuate over in Los Angeles. As always, the other half of the Double A, my brother Alan, is on the show, tapped in tonight. Say hello to the people, bro. How you been?
Been doing good, man. Just enjoying this snowy weather we've had.
Yeah, I know. Did you get a lot over there?
I got a little bit more than y'all did, but not by much.
Yeah, we didn't get a whole lot here either. I rode to Tyrone today, which is about
just
40 minutes north of me. Yeah, and it was all melted by yesterday. I'm driving up the interstate going towards Tyrone. I'm like, damn, you would have thought the snow just skipped everywhere that was south of Grantville. So
yeah, Thomaston didn't even get anything.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are staying safe over there. Let's go ahead and give the folks what they came here for, man, and jump right in as Texas in the Cotton Bowl. Of course, I don't have my notes pulled up. How rookie of me. Texas in the Cotton Bowl does fall to Ohio State 28-14. And first of all, we know that the semifinals were absolutely great between both of the games. And again, we are going to be getting into the both of them, but we will start with our Cotton Bowl reaction. Alan, give me some of your takeaways from Ohio State. Now moving on to the national championship.
I mean, look, from my predictions the other night, it pretty much played out how I was going to predict it. I'm sorry I couldn't make the show. Had some prior engagements. But the one thing I wanted to hit on the other night was Ohio State ranks first for points against and sixth for points for.
Yep.
So I'm like, and they're 29th in passing, 52nd in rushing. That's pretty hard to beat. I mean, Texas stacked up pretty evenly with it, but we saw that Ohio State was just one step ahead of Texas everywhere they turned, it seemed like.
Right.
Ohio State broke out within the first 8.5 minutes with a touchdown. And then it seems like everywhere you turned around, like Quinn Ewers would throw a nice pass. He'd throw a pick, and then he'd throw a nice pass, get it in the end zone. And then that's the half.
Right.
That's the first half. It's 14-7 going into the third. And then, Texas gets another one. They tie it up, make it look good. And then Ohio State just answers right back.
Yep.
And then they get on the goal line, and Captain Jack Sawyer strips the ball. And, that man will never have to buy a beer in the town of Columbus ever again.
Ever.
He is a Ohio State legend by now.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be really close. I thought it was going to be about 34-31. But
a lot of points you anticipated there.
Yeah, I did. I thought the offense was just going to be flying both ways because they got elite talent on both sides of the ball. Both teams do. Quinn's got an arm. They got some pretty good receivers. But I feel like Ohio State was better in the rushing department because you do have Judkins, you do have Travion Henderson.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
And then Will Howard's just a dog for slugging it out last night with that softball on his hand. I mean,
that's got to be hard.
And then he broke out for that big run. I'm like, dang, look at Will go. He was just having himself a game. He threw that ugly pick, but it happens. Quinn threw one too. And I think his was arguably worse. But just questionable play calling from the Texas offensive coordinator and Sarkisian. There was a couple of times where I'm scratching my head, like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Third down conversion just wasn't looking very good for them. And I think that's ultimately why they lost this ball game.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a tough one for Texas to be able to lose out in, man. You see that they dropped, 28-14, and even you're talking about that Jack Sawyer strip sack, clearly the play of the game. Guys coming in, coming out of this game, 4.5 sacks, a forced fumble, an 83-yard scoop and score, which is the longest in CFP history. And it's just tough for Texas to be able to go out like this, knowing how great the season was. But I said it coming in, if Steve Sarkisian was not willing to get creative with Arch Manning, they weren't going to stand a shot in this game. And the fact that Arch Manning got one snap is an absolute atrocity in relation to that Texas offense. Now, I understand, it's Quinn's offense. We know how religious or not religious. We know how faithful and, loyal that Sarkisian is to Quinn Ewers. But everybody on the
Right.
show watching, and even you and I, knew that Quinn Ewers was probably not going to be the guy to get Texas over the hump. And if we see
Uh-uh.
Texas back in this position next year, a third straight semifinal with Arch Manning, I'm probably going to put my money on it to win. Now, of course, it's
Yeah.
going to depend on who they play, but the fact that it had to be a decoy,
Mhm.
a direct snap through the tight end's legs to Arch Manning on the 4th and 1, I don't
He
understand it at all,
Didn't
man.
he get eat up on that play too?
No, he converted the 4th and 1. He almost
Okay.
fumbled. They was basically down
Yeah,
by the
yeah, yeah,
wrist,
that's
and
what
they
I
were kinda trying to roll it back and see if,
yeah, they
it would have been a
declared it not a
fumble.
fumble, right?
Right, yeah, absolutely correct, and there was a
Yeah.
couple of plays in this game where it's like, when you talk about it's a freaking game of inches, they are not lying. But, you look at the
Mhm.
beginning of the game, Texas comes out aggressive, and they don't convert on that 4th down to open the game, and, I was kinda wondering what the, mindset was behind that, but obviously they're looking to be aggressive, make their statement early on. Ohio State comes into this game outscoring opponents 35 to nothing, now 42 to nothing in the first quarter, and Texas was the third best in the country, just giving up 1.8 points per game in the first quarter, and we knew that this could be a potential battle of defenses. I had both games in the semifinal being such. Travion Henderson burning Texas on the edges, and Ohio State just gets out to a quick start, like you said, 122 yards, 7 points in the first quarter, and Texas comes out not able to move the ball at all, having 5 rush yards. I really thought Texas could have excuse me. Uh, what word am I looking for? Taking advantage, let me just say that, of Silas
Right.
Bull on the punt from Ohio State early on in the game. I really thought he was going to get around the edge and take it to the house. It was actually the beginning of the second quarter. Of course, he
That's
fumbled.
right.
Pretty lucky for him to have it bounce right back to him. And then you see Ohio State starting now ramp up the pressure on Texas, bringing the heat early in the second quarter. And it was tough to have Texas lose Matthew Golden in this game as well. Of course, he's able to come back and make some plays and really some clutch moments when it was needed. But his absence was definitely felt in that part of the game. And I thought Texas really could have done a little better at picking up the pressure, actually having a shot in this game at making Will Howard uncomfortable, because it just felt
Right.
like Will Howard had a lot of time in the pocket. And again, Texas struggling to run the
He
ball.
was
They had
cool and calm.
2 rushing yards. Say again?
He was cool and calm
He
that
was. He
entire
was.
time.
And I think he was clearly the better quarterback. And Will Howard continues to impress me week over week. Texas just struggled to run the ball in this game overall. I mean, 9 minutes to
Cardell
go in the
Tate looked
second
good too.
quarter. Yes, he did. And the fact that Texas doubled Jeremiah Smith, 1 catch for 3 yards on the game. He came in good for seven. He basically came in good for 7 catches for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns a game. That's what he
Yeah.
was doing on average in the CFP. And, when you struggle with a team like Texas with, Wisner and Blue not being able to run the ball, it's going to
Right.
make you very one dimensional. And if a coaching staff like Ohio State, specifically the best defense in the country, led by Ryan Day as their head coach, they're going to pick up on that. They're going to pin their ears back. They're going to come after you. And now Quinn Ewers was, fearless on that 3rd down conversion that was late in the second quarter. You got to give him, credit to that. Now, of course, when Arch Manning does get in on that drive, they're able to engineer that touchdown. You have fans calling in the first half after the first half is over for Arch Manning to come in, because Texas only
Mhm.
puts up 7 points. And, that's a little bit of a tough situation to have it play out like
Right.
that. But the fans want to see you score. This fans want to see you in the second straight semifinal punch your ticket to the national championship, because you have the same quarterback as last year in Quinn Ewers, who you weren't able to get it done with against Washington. Now, of course,
Absolutely.
Washington was the team to go to the Natty, lose to Michigan in that game. But here's where Texas really screwed up. And this is just a really, really bad call on Steve Sarkisian. That screen pass to Travion Henderson, 75-yard screen pass at the end of the first half. Why would you blitz a corner to that side of the field? Because that was the
Mhm.
prime reason that Travion Henderson scored.
Really.
And that right there, being able to take them up 14-7, they really took that momentum. But the third quarter, Allen, I mean, the third quarter from Texas, And, coming into it, they struggled in third quarter points. They've been outscored in every second half since the Oklahoma game, which was on
Right.
October 12th, 1 week before the first Georgia matchup that they had. And
Didn't they have
Texas defense, they came up big. They got an interception to open the third quarter, but they didn't make anything of it. And then by the time they're giving the ball back to Ohio State, they're now 0 for 7 on third down at that point. I want to say they were 5 for 15 in this game on third down, both teams around 30%. Not very strong on third down. And you see Texas just hammering away with the run, the screen passes all through the third quarter, keeping that Ohio State defense at bay. And then they open up that defense. They pick up the blitz, toss the touchdown pass to Blue for 26 yards. And now here's Texas, right? Texas has really inserted themselves into this game. The defense is cranked up in the third quarter, tip passes, finally sacks. He had an interception in this one. And the fact that Sark was able to, and the Texas defense was so, effective at double teaming Jeremiah Smith to just absolutely take him out of the game. I don't know if you recall the
right.
overthrow to Golden on the 3rd and 5 to start the fourth quarter. That's got to absolutely haunt Texas. That was a potential touchdown right
Yeah.
there. And then Chip Kelly, dialing up design quarterback runs for Will Howard in the fourth, like you said, just really taking it on the nose, really grinding it out there for his team, which was super
Booker
awesome
came
to
up real good too.
see. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it did. And you talk about that drive where Jack Sawyer, that's really the drive and the play that everyone's going to remember. Ohio State gives you back-to-back pass interferences. You're letting Texas knock on the door. They stuff you on 1st and goal. Then you have a halfback sweep for an insane loss of 5 yards. I mean, that never had a chance. You throw an incomplete pass. Ohio State is top 3 in goal to go
They
and
ran
red
that
zone
sweep
touchdown
play
percentage.
several times.
Yeah, and the sweep play in the red zone was just absolutely hideous. This 4th and goal, you're on the 1-yard line at one point. You got to get the touchdown. The defense slams the door. Ohio State does the scoop and score, and clearly the rest was history. But to see Sarkisian, non-deceptive, no eye candy, no motion, no play action, that doesn't scream the Texas offense that we've seen this year in big moments, and just coaching scared on that drive. It clearly
No,
showed you that Sarkisian was not willing to rise to the occasion. And I know this was basically a 21-14 game the whole time until Jack Sawyer, gets his way. But it really felt like outside of the third quarter, Allen, and tell me if I'm wrong, Ohio State controlled the majority of this football game.
they did. They had them locked in where they wanted them to be. It was just a matter of time before they scored again, and they just so happened to do it through Jack Sawyer. But they
Right.
felt, like I said originally, they felt in
Yeah,
control of the ball game the entire time. They were just playing the better football. They had the better plays. Um, and like
for
you
sure.
said, Texas was coaching
For
scared.
sure.
It was like they had their tail between their legs. I know McConaughey's punching air right now as we speak.
Yep.
Why didn't they throw Arch Manning in?
Yeah.
I was waiting on something to get thrown on the
Right.
field.
Hey, Texas fans won't have to worry. Right. Hey, they did. Was it the Notre Dame game? I think that something got thrown
Wouldn't
on the
shock
field.
me.
There was one game this weekend where stuff got where stuff got thrown on the field, and it, as we see, Texas this year, all 3 of their losses, 3 points or less scored by them in all 3 losses this year. Outscored again
Texas
in the second
struggled in the
half
third
yet
quarter
again.
too.
First time in. Yeah, they've struggled in the third quarter all season, which is horrible. And this is the first time Texas has won 13 games and didn't go to the national championship in program history. You see, Ohio
Yep.
State still has yet to trail in the postseason. So, just an absolute juggernaut in the Ohio State Buckeyes. What's up, Emory? Man, happy New Year to y'all. Second of all, F. Carson Beck, LOL. We will holler at you. He seemed checked out all year. He wanted a fairy tale story to go to Miami with his girl. That's sweet, but prosperity. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. So he's getting all cash he can, and he's with
I
his
never
girl.
thought he
Good for
was.
him. But do y'all really think this will change Miami's chances to win? And do you think, honestly,
No.
he's an NFL quarterback? Although I deal with Ole Miss now, too, after Georgia, but I think Jackson Dart is way better than Carson. What do y'all think? Yeah, Jackson Dart over Carson
Jackson
Beck
Dart
for
is
sure.
10
Carson Beck,
times
we're
the
going to be
quarterback.
Carson Beck set to make $4.4 million in his 1 year in NIL at Miami, which is going to be 5th in the nation. By the time he leaves Miami and potentially goes to the draft, a blessing for him if he gets drafted, he'll have made $10 million in NIL money basically
That's
within
more than
about a
an
year.
NFL rookie contract.
Yeah, rookie quarterbacks, if you're the first overall pick, you might come out making 15, 20 million a year or something like that. So he's definitely scraping up on the fact that, he's going to be able to make that type of money. Also, I'm losing money. I took the Chargers. Texans killing them right now. Yeah, I was watching that a little bit before I got on the show, man. Justin Herbert's thrown 3 picks, one of them being a pick 6. The Texans turned the ball over a couple times too, but yeah, I think I had the Texans winning that game, and I think the Texans are going to pull it out. Oh wait, no. I actually had the Chargers winning that one. I felt like the coaching
I
prowess of
sure
Jim
did.
Harbaugh, first game, you know, like yes, CJ Stroud and D'Amico Ryans have been here before. They got to 14, and of course they lose to the Ravens. But I don't know. I just felt like the Chargers are going to be better prepared for this one. Any final thoughts on the Cotton Bowl before we get to the Orange Bowl?
Not really. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Orange Bowl takeaways here. Notre Dame escapes Penn State 27-24 after it really looked like Notre Dame was outmatched for a good bit of this football game until they were able to turn it around in the second half. Give me some of your takeaways on this one, Alan.
I thought that
4 picks
Jeremiah
for
Love
Herbert.
would have
Jesus.
been. I thought Jeremiah Love would have been a little bit more of a factor in this game. He said he wasn't going to hurdle, and then he ended up doing it. Which but like I said, they're 11th in rushing overall.
Yep.
So I thought Love was, like I said, going to be more of a factor, but I also thought that this game would be won in the trenches for sure
Yeah.
because Penn State's defensive front is nasty. They can
Yep.
get a hold of a quarterback so fast. And Riley Leonard did not play his best game, but somehow, some way, they scraped the bottom of the barrel and figured out how to win. And I think that's part of the coaching prowess of Marcus Freeman. Happy
For
birthday to
sure.
him. And also Mitch Jeter, man. That guy's going down in Notre Dame history. He won him
Oh, yeah.
he won him the Orange Bowl. You know. But like I said, you got Xavier Watts back there on defense and for Notre Dame. That guy's scary. He's like a heat-seeking missile when it comes to a football being thrown his way. He's gonna go grab it if he can.
Yeah.
Just like I said, it was just a great defensive matchup, and I knew it would be. And I had a feeling Notre Dame was going to come
Yep.
away with this by at least 3 to 7 points. My original prediction was 24-17 Notre Dame. But Penn State looked
Yeah.
in control.
I was 21.
Yeah, Penn State looked in control for the majority of the game until the third quarter. That's when everything starts to turn around for Notre Dame. They score 3 points in the first half. Then they're not happy. They're not satisfied with that. And they turn it around in the fourth quarter and they just get it done. And I think the two best teams are truly moving on to the national championship. It's not like one of those, that's not really the two best teams. No, I really think these are the two best teams, top to bottom.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you, man. I really think that we do have the two best teams left playing for the national championship on January 20th in Georgia. Emery says, who y'all got, Ohio State or Notre Dame? I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. I'm taking Ohio State to win it all.
I'm taking Ohio State to win it all, too. They just, ever since that Michigan loss, they unlocked something. They're channeling something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Again, the Michigan loss was the best thing that could have happened to them. We'll actually be giving our picks
I was like,
on.
It's over.
Oh, yeah, man. I felt like that when they handled Oregon.
Yeah.
I really thought you and I talked about a couple of times Oregon, Georgia national championship, especially with the way the bracket was playing out. I mean, it was hard not to look at that. But yeah, Emery, so those are going to be our picks. We're both taking Ohio State. If you tune into next week's show, what day is that going to be? It's going to be on Tuesday. Obviously, we're going to be doing the show. It's going to be on the 14th. We'll be discussing the national championship, chopping it up, really giving our in-depth takeaways. And then, of course, the following Tuesday, the day after the game, we'll be able to give you our recap and review that. Let's jump into the Orange Bowl. Notre Dame able to escape, like I said, 27-24 over Penn State. And this was a game where it really felt like Penn State was absolutely in control in the first half. I mean, Notre Dame didn't seem like they could keep up with anything. And you had both teams blitzing early on to really disrupt, the game plan. I was a little confused when Penn State had the fair catch at the 2-yard line. I really expected Notre Dame on that drive to bring the house, and they did somewhat. And Penn State's backfield is just so dynamic, man. I mean, Kaytron Allen balling out, getting them out of the pin pinned deep in their own territory when they did have the fair catch. And Notre Dame's secondary was very airtight early on. They were not making it easy for Penn State, for Drew Aller. And I knew this was going to be a battle of the run game, battle of third downs, and both of these teams were executing and defending it, I felt like, very well through most of the game. One Achilles heel of Notre Dame was the fact that they were the worst in the country at 3rd and 7+ yards, only converting 15% of those actual situations. And you see they bring the pressure on Riley Leonard. He throws an awful interception. And I think the resiliency of Notre Dame in this game, knowing they lost a turnover battle, knowing that they were down 2 offensive linemen, knowing that we were worried about a potential Riley Leonard scare coming out of the first half, leading into the second half. And they were just able to overcome every bit of that. Even the fact that they were gashed for over 200 rushing yards by Penn State. It was literally the Nick Singleton, Katron Allen show. And Penn State was very aggressive in this game. On 4th down, Yeah, Greathouse absolutely breaking ankles. And that was a pivotal part for Penn State. Having your defensive back fall down, such a tough break, but Penn State was aggressive. They've been aggressive on 4th down the last 5 games, going for it 33% of the time. They did get cost a touchdown. Drew Aller throws low and inside on Nick Singleton, so that did cost them a score there. And Penn State overall was pretty good at making Riley Leonard a non-factor with his legs. He had 18 carries for 35 yards, so just under 2 yards a carry. If you would have told the Penn State fans, if you would have told James Franklin that, of the defensive coordinator, they would have been very happy with it. But I can't lie, Alan. I thought Drew Aller kind of, got it going a little too late, because he started out 2 for 2 on screen passes, and then he ended up 2 for 10 on his other throws to start the game. And I don't know if you knew this, Penn State wide receivers had 0 catches for 0 yards in this game. It's the first time all season that a wide receiver in a team in the Power 4 has had no catches for no yards on wide receivers. That's been the problem for Penn State.
Yeah.
That's been the huge problem for Penn State. When your tight end leads you in receiving yards, when your
That's
running
Tyler
back leads
Warren,
you in receiving
isn't
yards
it?
at one point, Tyler Warren, when your quarterback is leading you in rushing yards, like in some of the earlier games this year, and that absolutely reared its ugly head. And, I emotionally picked Penn State after Notre Dame defeated my Bulldogs. So once you started looking at these rosters, I'm like, Andy Kotelnicki, it's like he forgets that he has wide receivers sometimes. And again, don't get me wrong about
a
Notre
quarterback
Dame
that could throw a
being
mean
one of the
deep
best
ball.
defenses.
Utilize that. Draw up some routes.
Exactly. You got to do more than just send your tight end out there, because Notre Dame was going to pick up on that. Again, this is the defense in college football that leads the nation in takeaways, and they lead the nation in points off takeaways by a wide margin. So, the fact that they weren't able to tap into that specialty, but still were able to, of course they do force the bad interception on Drew Aller. They were still able to, come away victorious and hold those wide receivers to no catches for no yards is just really remarkable. And you had Penn State, again, just gashing them on the run game, especially on the edges. Notre Dame just looking outmatched early on. And Penn State was, 2 red zone trips, 2 scores. So I'm like, okay, is this really going to be the moment where Penn State just really goes forward? And they were all over Riley Leonard in the first half. The offense couldn't get anything going. And when you're down, again, 2 offensive linemen, your quarterback is potentially hurt. Penn State was smelling blood in the water.
Oh, yeah.
They see Steve Angeli come in as the backup, and they're like, okay, we got these guys right the hell where we want them. They're pinning their ears back. They almost get a strip sack. And then, Riley Leonard comes out. He's good to go. And correct me if I'm wrong, that was probably the moment that Notre Dame won the game. Because I believe if Riley Leonard is not in there with his fierce competitive spirit, you tell me, do you think Notre Dame has any sort of shot if Riley Leonard's not able to go in that second half? Because even Marcus Freeman said, less quarterback design runs, but the same game plan. You believe that's true?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
It's a tough call, isn't it? No, you're good. If you didn't see Riley Leonard in the second half, knowing that Marcus Freeman said the game plan was going to be the same, just less quarterback design runs, do you think Notre Dame would have had a shot to win it the way that they did?
Not at all. Riley Leonard is a fierce competitor, man. He really is. I've known that since, I want to call back to the Duke game last year against Florida State. That guy would not lay down. I was like, please, just go away. And he would. It's the ropes that kept coming back, dude. And that's one thing I can say about Riley Leonard. He threw those 2 ugly interceptions, but it didn't stop him. He didn't get in his head. That's one thing I can give him. But yeah, he's just a fierce competitor, man. And I think Notre Dame, like, if you tell me that Notre Dame's going to win the national championship, I'm not going to question it too much. just because they have
Right.
been
They've
known
proved a
to
lot.
make some weird stuff happen. Like, nobody thought they were gonna
Yep.
beat Georgia, and they
Right.
did.
And they
And
handled them.
nobody and a lot of people were questioning the Penn State, and here they are.
Yep.
Here we are.
Yep.
So, they're
Yeah.
capable of a whole lot, don't count them out.
Right.
Just Ohio State's
They're hella
big bag
resilient,
and
man, and you have
scary. I
to.
think that's what they have going for them.
Yeah, as Joel Klatt's been saying, they're like the supernova Death Star of college
Pretty
football
much.
right now, and who's going to be able to get out of the way of that
Yeah. It's
death
like a damn
beam,
steamroller coming down
essentially.
here.
Yeah, 100%. And we definitely saw a different Texas against Ohio State than we did against Arizona State, and it's a very good possibility that we're going to see similarities, but also some differences as Ohio State and Notre Dame go to face off in a national championship. But you see Notre Dame in the second half. They get a big completion to get things started. They march down the field. They punch it in. They get the field goal before the half. So they boom, just like that. They tie the game up. They turn around, get a 3-and-out on Penn State, which is absolutely
Yeah.
huge. And then, they're bringing a house. Now they're absolutely bringing a house on Penn State. And again, it was kind of like that third quarter for Texas. You see the third quarter, the entire second half for Notre Dame. They're clawing back. They're in this game now. It's 10-10 going into the fourth quarter, and it's kind of how I saw it playing out. I had a 21-17 victory, and 27-24 isn't too terribly off. And just like that, Notre Dame from 10-0 to 17-10, 17 unanswered points. I feel like that's just the definition of Notre Dame. They put up that barrage of points against Georgia in that 58, 60-second span, and they don't do, really a barrage of points in a short amount of time here. But 17 unanswered in the CFP semifinals, that's 3 possessions that you're able to come back from.
Abdul Carter, where are you
That's
at?
huge. Or literally, 3 possessions that you're able to essentially score. Obviously over 16 points will give you a 3-possession game. And then here comes Penn State, continue to smash the run game. Obviously, they're getting Warren involved a little bit. I thought it was a great call from the Penn State defense, man. I had to mention this play specifically. They dropped number 33 into coverage as the D lineman. Riley Leonard sees that, throws the interception. Rather, he doesn't see it. They throw the interception. It was just an amazing protection from the offensive line from Riley Leonard, and he just doesn't see number 33 slip back into coverage. So now Penn State is +2. Yeah, in the turnover margin. And Notre Dame had 2 interceptions in this game taken away from defensive pass interferences, which they both were correct calls. And the fans were a little classless, throwing shit on the field, but it is what it is. You've got kids at these games. You got to understand that maybe sometimes that'll happen. And again, with 3 touchdowns for Nick Singleton, man, I mean, it was really him and the Katron Allen show. And that's why I just didn't know if Notre Dame was really going to be able to pick it up. But Penn State, biggest defensive lapse of the night. Great House obviously gets around the defender. He basically waltzes into the end zone. And I think the biggest, kind of factor for Notre Dame being able to turn it around in this one is they were able to run the football. And Marcus Freeman came out and said, we got to be able to run the ball. We got to be able to establish a line of scrimmage, because they had 15 rushing yards in the first half. And this game was a little of a snooze fest. You had 20 combined points in the first 3 quarters, 31 points combined in the fourth quarter for both teams, as it just absolutely starts to take off. Obviously, Penn State, their only mistake of the night, which really damned them. They do throw the interception. I don't know if you knew, man, we got to witness the first ever kick in college football playoff history to be made to go ahead on the scoreboard in the fourth quarter. Notre Dame snaps a 19-game losing streak against top 10 teams when trailing at the half. Penn State actually loses its first game in 22 matchups overall in college football when leading at the half. And James Franklin is catching all the flack. He is now the 3rd worst win percentage in history against AP top 5s. He is 1-18 in AP top 5 matchups. Do you think the Penn State AD, do you think the Penn State fans have a right to look at James Franklin's job considering that atrocious record in big-time games?
They definitely have a reason.
I know he played Oregon close this year, too.
They definitely have reasoning. But close ain't going to keep your job for long. You got to get it done eventually. Because if not, you're out. That's how the game is nowadays. If you can't win the big one, you got to go. Somebody else will.
Right.
And Marcus Freeman's living freaking proof of that. Brian Kelly was only a matter of time, I think, before Notre Dame would have said bye. Because he just wasn't. He couldn't get to that point where Marcus is right now. I think that's what Notre Dame really
Right.
needed. Because Brian said, "Oh, I'm going to go to
Mhm.
LSU. I'm going to try to win a national championship." Little did he know his successor is right there on the big stage now. I bet he's kicking himself right
Yep.
now because that was his
Yep.
coordinator.
He's right. Right. He's right there in it.
Yeah,
He's
doing
right
the
there in the
thing you
thick of
couldn't
it.
do.
You gotta give it right.
Well, he went
And
once
you gotta
against
give it
Alabama, but let's face it, that Alabama team was something else.
yeah. Yeah, they were juggernaut.
That was
That was a tough
AJ
game to watch. I think it
McCarron,
was
I think, at quarterback in
uh
2012.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, AJ
That was,
McCarron.
and they ran up a
Wow.
check on them.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when that was when Aaron Murray, we were in the SEC
Yep.
championship against
Yep.
Alabama, I'm pretty sure, and the ball bounced off the back of the receiver and he caught it and went down and the clock ran out instead of him he should have let it hit the ground and Georgia would have had another chance. That was so
They
just
were right there
painful to
knocking
just
on the
watch the
door,
time.
and they blamed
They
Mark Richt
were.
for it.
They were. Yeah, nah, that was just a
That was
mental
not Mark
lapse
Richt's
at a
fault.
big point. Uh-uh. No, it was, collective efforts of Mark Rick over the years just not being
Oh,
able to get
yeah.
over the hump. And, clearly Kirby has proven that that program is good enough to get to those heights. And I'm super grateful for Kirby Smart.
Absolutely.
Last topic here on the show, just a little bit of a short one for our Saturday night special. I guess Carson Beck was listening to the show, Alan, because he's going to use that final year of eligibility. He has withdrawn from the NFL draft. He is transferred to the Miami Hurricanes, set to make $4.4 million in 1 year of NIL money there. Expected to make about $10 million in NIL money between Georgia, the NIL, now with the Miami Hurricanes. Of course, his girlfriend is on the college basketball team for the Miami Hurricanes. Yep. And this is interesting because Miami goes from one of the best quarterbacks in their program's history in Cam Ward, and it was a huge steal when they got him in the transfer portal, to now picking up Carson Beck, who probably went to NFL scouts and got a grade of maybe being undrafted after the injury or a very late day 3 pick. Who knows? Do you see Carson Beck being better in the pressure of Miami Hurricanes program over Georgia?
It's if you're asking in terms of can they develop him better than the University of Georgia, I think not. I think this is a move to get closer to his girlfriend, not necessarily the fairy tale, but I
Right.
because he knows he's not going to be the starter next year. He at Georgia.
He could
He
be. At
yeah,
Georgia.
he knows he's not going to be the starter next year at Georgia. That's either going to be
right.
That's Gunner's team now. It's his time to shine. Just like Quinn and Arch. I'm glad Quinn is going to the draft, or at least he's reported to go to the draft instead of getting a transfer. Because they were offering him hella NIL deals to transfer. But he's got some class, and I appreciate that about him. But in any case, back to what we were talking about. I don't think it makes him better and develops him better as a quarterback, because if you look at the predecessor to Cam Ward was already a weapon before he got there, and he was just able to showcase more of his talent, especially when you have when you encounter Florida State in a down year, and that's a rivalry game. Florida was trying to get it together early on in the season. They didn't know what kind of team they wanted to be, so he looks good in that game. But then you throw the entire offense on Cam Ward's lap, make him the general.
Yep.
It's like, hey, you're driving this car, you're the captain. So all things considered, if they do that to Carson Beck, it's not going to go well.
No,
it's not going to go well. Look at Tyler Van Dyke, dude. He couldn't do it. That was his predecessor. So, I mean, Mario Cristobal, great coach, but as far as Carson Beck goes, I kind of question it. They're just like, oh, the name.
Yeah.
The name Carson Beck. He's from Georgia. He's going to be good for us. That's not, the grass isn't always greener, man. I think get one of those guys that you recruited, develop him.
Right.
Give him a shot.
Yeah.
But, let him sit behind Carson Beck, see if he can mentor him. But Carson looked questionable at best this year, especially with all the interceptions and a
between the
string of
Alabama
games.
Texas game.
Exactly. He had a string of games where he
had 14 turnovers in 4 games or something.
And he threw like 9 picks within 3 games.
It
I'm
was
like,
horrible.
that's not going to win you a national championship.
Nope. And I said
that's
he would
not
be
gonna,
the reason why we couldn't win it. That's why What?
And with rivalry games too. That's
Yep.
yeah. I don't know. I'm questioning Miami's decision making. I know why they're doing it. Part of because Carson wants to be with his girlfriend, but also
About to
the
say.
the name. He came from Georgia, a really good winning program. We can develop
Right.
him better. We can get him
Yeah.
better. It's
Two-time national championship winning
yeah,
quarterback. If you
ACC.
don't
Yeah,
stop
that was Stetson
disrespecting
Bennett.
Stetson Bennett the fourth like that, bro.
ACC. There, I know what he's thinking. Oh, ACC is going to be a walk in the park. Not really.
Uh-huh.
Not
Right.
really. You still got Clemson lurking around out
Right.
there. Louisville's
That's
not a
right. Florida
bad
State gonna
team.
be back
Florida
next year.
State's coming back. They just
Yep.
cleaned the slate. You know,
Yep.
Clemson, or I already said them.
I think Mike
SMU,
Norvell's gonna really nail those
yeah,
hires.
SMU. Florida State's playing the transfer portal very well. You know, they're developing their guys that they've recruited. The
Yep.
ACC is not an easy place to play. Like a lot of people think, oh, it's they play Pitt, they play Virginia. It's like it,
Yeah.
sometimes you can like Notre Dame's living proof. Sometimes you can get your head busted in by nobody.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Miami almost lost to Cal,
Hun
who lost to
yeah.
FSU, who only won two
Yep.
games.
Miami almost lost to Cal. Miami almost lost to
Yeah.
Virginia Tech. They almost lost to Duke. They had to come back on Louisville. I mean, yeah, there was
So if I had to grade
remember we
this,
talked about it. We were like, this is the Miami Concernicanes.
yeah, concernicanes at best. Yes. So if I had, and I have nothing pleasant to say about that. Never mind. I'm not even gonna go there.
I was like saying, whoa, he finna get real vile.
I'm not even gonna go there. I got class unlike them.
Right. I was about to say, the Father, Son, and
But
Holy
I
Spirit.
agreed. Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
God don't let people root for the Hurricanes. Um, but in any case,
yeah, give me a grade on the transfer if you want.
a C, B minus at best.
Yeah, I think B
Because he's
minus is
not gonna
warranted.
lose you a game, but he's not your answer.
Right.
And I'll die on that hill, dude.
Right.
I'm just gonna be like it is. I'm gonna say it like it is. That's not Cam Ward. You
No,
can't just
hell
throw
no.
an entire offense in his lap and give him the keys and tell him to drive.
Yeah. Now Carson
You
Beck
know,
does have a lot of experience, which is good for Miami, but
right?
like you said,
He's got a lot of
if
snaps, but
yeah, if he thinks this is going to be a walk in the park in the ACC, he's got another thing coming. If anything, he should, you know, maybe kind of cut his teeth more in the ACC and try to get some more experience there, seeing a different conference of football. But here's why I'm really nervous, right? I'm not sold on Mario Cristobal as a coach with the Miami Hurricanes, and I believe that Carson Beck is that type of quarterback to where he has to be in a very good coaching staff. I think that Kirby was able to get the best out of Carson Beck, and we don't
yeah,
really know if that's saying much.
the bottom of the two
Anybody,
states, dude.
anybody on this show,
Yeah,
and if we had another 10 people on this panel, I guarantee everybody would tell you that Kirby Smart is a better coach than Mario Cristobal. And now you're going to take Carson Beck out of an
that's not a
elite
question.
program, right? And a program that's been elite for the last 5-6 years, and take it over to Miami, who just now is starting to, get their vibe back. They have guys like Restrepo and Martinez, and of course, Cam Ward and Mario Cristobal is kind of the one to piece it together. But Mario Cristobal's job was even being questioned in the middle of this season, especially when they were pulling out a lot of those close
Well,
wins. And they were asking Cam Ward to be quarterback. Carson Beck cannot do that. Carson Beck
look
is
at
not a superhero.
no, he's not. It, he's just a guy that'll get the game done pretty
And I'll
much.
push back.
But
I think he could lose you a game. I would argue that he
yeah,
was the reason we were able to get behind in Alabama. It was great that we had the comeback to get it to 34-28, but we never would have been in that damn position if he didn't throw 3 interceptions and turn it over on a horrible fumble.
look at Mario's tenure at Oregon, man. They're
Right.
better now than they ever were under Mario.
Exactly.
Dan Lanning has done more with that team than Mario ever got out of.
Probably the best young coach in college football right now.
Yeah,
Yep.
but I'm not gonna glaze Dan too much, but just Mario's got a lot to prove to me.
Yeah.
And the Miami Hurricanes are notorious for firing coaches very quickly.
Uh-huh.
Look what they did to poor Manny Diaz. They got his butt out of town quick.
Right.
Mark Richt basically took over the Miami Hurricanes to hand the keys to Manny Diaz,
Uh-huh.
and they ran him out of town fairly quickly. And then they were going through coaches left and right before then. So
Yeah. Hey,
It just
hold on one second. Keep your take going. Hold on.
I don't think I really don't think Miami will be better with Carson Beck. I just highly doubt it.
Yeah. Nah, they won't. Sorry, I thought I heard some
No, you're
commotion.
good.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be better with Beck either. I think, the coaching is really gonna ride on that. And honestly, man, I think Miami Hurricane fans are gonna come down really hard on Carson. I think they're really gonna be tough on
Oh
him. As
yeah.
if Georgia fans already weren't. Your expectation was to win the fucking national championship this year. You think
Hurricane fans are passionate.
yeah, you couldn't handle the heat from Georgia? Excuse my language,
Yeah.
but you could if you possibly couldn't handle that heat from us.
Get the hell out of the kitchen.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah, I don't know what Miami is thinking, man. I don't even know. Is it the name or is it just the fact that he's from Georgia? Because if you actually stay tapped into college
Both.
football, the name of Carson Beck should not intrigue you to be your QB1.
It's
And
UGA's quarterback. That's what they're
right,
thinking.
right. I guess that's what they're looking at because the decision making is not great. Yes, Bobo was able to help him clean it up over the last 5-6 weeks of the season where he actually didn't throw an interception after that horrible 12 interception stretch, which was the only
And
picks he had on the season.
I'm
But
gonna laugh at myself here for a minute. This ain't DJU bad, but this is questionable.
yeah, it's a very questionable transfer pickup because I mean, how do you go from Cam Ward, which it's going to be hard to kind of reinvigorate that quarterback room if Cam's moving on, but to Carson Beck? You thought
Yeah.
that was the best solution? And teams like Ohio State and Texas Tech were actually in the run for him? I just
Yeah.
I don't get it, man. I don't. And again, I'm glad that Carson was able to clean it up, but I did say Carson was going to be the reason why we did not win the national championship. And I would be shocked if we see Carson playing on Sundays. Look, I'm
Well, him and
glad that
Mike
he's
Bobo.
taken right. I'm glad that he's taking his final year of eligibility because this is a, pretty good quarterback class, if you ask me. And I think Carson Beck would be at the bottom, list of these guys that are going to be taken. I really,
Oh,
really
he'd be
do.
D tier for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So him taking that extra year, doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on that experience, but now being with a different program and a different system, maybe he just didn't need as many expectations. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I was definitely shocked because my thought was, okay, he's transferring to Miami. That way, if he doesn't get drafted, and God forbid he goes undrafted for him, he's got a place to fall back to. But we figure out that he withdraws from the draft, and now he's going to be pushing forward as a Miami Hurricane. But
You
y'all get
better
in the
hope he
chat.
gets in the third round
Yeah,
next year.
yeah, seriously. Y'all get in the chat, get in the comments. Let us know what you think of Carson Beck transferring to Miami. We gave you a recap of the Cotton Bowl with Texas and Ohio State and a recap of the Orange Bowl with Notre Dame and Penn State. That was episode 89 of the NFL with AJL. Obviously, the Double A was packed full of content tonight. Y'all could have been anywhere else in the world, but you were tapped in with us on a Saturday night edition of the show. Of course, before we get out of here, y'all please make sure to like and share that stream wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell so you don't miss a post. The QR code will give you every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. If you can't find us, you're simply not looking hard enough. Shout out to my boy Felix, who is getting back on the short clips for us. If you guys see us on all the social platforms, we're putting back out the shorts, the TikToks, the Reels, anything that you want to call it. Please make sure to share this stream. Please make sure to subscribe on YouTube so we can continue to bring you guys great content. If you want to drop a super like, a super chat, super thanks, super whatever to donate monetarily to the show, or you can DM us on social media to be able to contribute. I'm Adam. That's Alan from the Double A. And go ahead, bro. You got some final
One
thoughts?
more thing. Yeah,
Go for it.
final thoughts. All them Texas fans that was getting at us in the comments the other day. Where your
Yeah.
team at? Back in Austin.
He said, "Where your team at?" Let's go ahead and simmer it down for him. Yeah, they were so torn on the fact that we had those takes about ASU and Texas. I feel like it was kind of 50-50.
Really
I was like,
were.
whoa.
It was 50-50,
I'm
but I'm
finna
like,
be the only one
how
saying
you
that it
mad
wasn't
when
a
your
rob.
team won?
Right.
How you mad
Right.
still?
Yep. And they had opportunities to be able to get back
they'll
into the
give
Ohio
anybody
State
a
game.
podcast these days, won't they?
Hey, we make fantastic content. So if they're gonna let anybody make the podcast, sure. Anyone can make a podcast, but not everybody can make great content like we do here on the NFL with AJL and the Double A. I'm Adam. That's Alan. We'll be back on Tuesday to give you our national championship picks and previews, even though we're both